The later chapters of Isaiah address a nation standing on the brink. By the time we reach chapter 57, the text points toward a specific historical crisis, the late-stage rot of ancient Judah, in the decades leading up to its complete destruction by Babylon in 586 BC. This period is defined heavily by the reign of King Manasseh. Under his rule, the religious reforms enacted by previous generations were entirely dismantled, plunging Judah into deep spiritual apostasy and rampant idol worship. The core theological issue here is what the prophet frames as spiritual adultery. Ancient Judah began to equate political treaties with foreign powers to the actual worship of those nations' idols. Securing a military alliance meant adopting the gods of the allied empire. Throughout this chapter, Isaiah dissects the absolute futility of relying on worldly empires for national security. He argues that this geopolitical maneuvering produces only chaos and reveals that true peace is exclusively promised to the contrite. We begin our examination with the prophet's indictment of Israel's unfaithfulness. Judah's geopolitical vulnerability followed directly from their abandoned covenant. Their eventual military collapse was the symptom of a broken spiritual law. Isaiah chapter 57, verse 8 states, "Behind the doors also and the posts hast thou set up thy remembrance, for thou hast discovered thyself to another than me, and art gone up. Thou hast enlarged thy bed, and made thee a covenant with them." As we see in these ancient stone figurines, the remembrance behind the doors signifies hidden private idol worship that corrupted the domestic sphere. This directly violated the command in Deuteronomy to write God's law openly upon the doorposts of their homes. The text then introduces the metaphor of enlarging the bed. This represents spiritual adultery on a national scale. Judah forged political alliances with Egypt, Assyria, and Babylon, and subsequently adopted their pagan deities as part of the diplomatic exchange. Isaiah chapter 57, verses 9 and 10 state, "And thou wentest to the king with ointment, and didst increase thy perfumes, and didst send thy messengers far off. Thou art wearied in the greatness of thy way, yet saidst thou not, there is no hope. Thou hast found the life of thine hand." This stone relief carving illustrates the luxury associated with these treaties. The ointments and perfumes mentioned by Isaiah were literal, highly costly tributes paid to forge alliances against competing empires like Babylon. By finding the life of thine hand, the prophet indicates the leaders took security entirely into their own hands. They exhausted their nation's wealth chasing false security rather than acknowledging their mistakes and repenting. Judah bankrupted its own treasury to buy temporary political favors from the very empires that ultimately sought to enslave them. Isaiah chapter 57, verses 11 through 13 state, "And of whom hast thou been afraid or feared, that thou hast lied, and hast not remembered me? I will declare thy righteousness and thy works, for they shall not profit thee." God points to the root of the theological conflict. Judah's leaders feared human empires and standing armies far more than they revered their own creator. When God mentions thy righteousness and thy works, he is referring to the mechanical, empty keeping of the law of Moses. Without actual faith, those rituals provided no salvation. The text follows with a specific warning in verse 13. "When thou criest, let thy companies deliver thee, but the wind shall carry them all away, vanity shall take them." These companies represent their pantheon of false gods and foreign political allies, failing them simultaneously, swept away as total vanity. The passage ends with a contrasting promise, "But he that putteth his trust in me shall possess the land, and shall inherit my holy mountain." Human treaties are easily blown away by historical shifts. In stark contrast, God offers enduring, unbreakable territorial and spiritual permanence to those who place their trust in him. Next, Isaiah chapter 57, verses 14 and 15 state, "And shall say, cast ye up, prepare the way, take up the stumbling block out of the way of my people." This marks the chapter's theological pivot. It is a divine command to clear away the spiritual obstacles of idolatry so the nation can clearly return to covenantal worship. God then describes himself as the high and lofty one that inhabiteth eternity, yet notes that he dwells with him also that is of a contrite and humble spirit. The text presents a striking paradox. The transcendent creator of the universe bypasses arrogant royal courts to dwell intimately with individuals exhibiting deep repentance. Isaiah chapter 57, verses 16 through 18 state, "For I will not contend forever, neither will I be always wroth. For the iniquity of his covetousness was I wroth, and smote him. I have seen his ways, and will heal him. I will lead him also, and restore comforts unto him and to his mourners." The text establishes strict limits on divine wrath. God applies discipline to correct covenantal betrayal, but his ultimate objective is always the healing and restoration of his people. Divine grace, triggered by human contrition, provides the restoration that political maneuvering and military alliances cannot reach. The following passage explains in Isaiah chapter 57, verse 19, "I create the fruit of the lips. Peace, peace to him that is far off, and to him that is near, saith the Lord, and I will heal him." God is the active creator of peace. He extends this healing indiscriminately to anyone who returns, regardless of how far they have strayed from the covenant. Finally, Isaiah chapter 57, verses 20 and 21 state, "But the wicked are like the troubled sea, when it cannot rest, whose waters cast up mire and dirt. There is no peace, saith my God, to the wicked." The humble receive divine peace, while the wicked endure an exhausting, perpetual agitation, constantly dredging up their own ruin. Relying on worldly alliances and abandoning the divine covenant leaves humanity trapped in a chaotic, restless cycle that produces nothing but corruption. This concludes our overview.